So this time of year, you may see some monarch butterflies in your yard, and this is a fabulous time to see them because they're migrating. They're on their way to California, where they will spend the winter, and then they will come back here in the spring. And they're hungry, so to encourage them in your yard, it's great to have any type of plant with a lot of nectar. I have a couple of special plants just for monarchs in my yard. It's called Tithonia. Common name is Mexican sunflower. It's very easy to grow this from seed, and I grow this specifically for monarchs. I will say hummingbirds like it and bees like it too, but monarchs do love this plant. The second plant I have in my yard for monarchs is the butterfly bush. This is a perennial. And of course, monarchs aren't the only critters that love this plant. All types of butterflies and hummingbirds and bees love it too. A couple other things that you can plant that monarchs like, and these are perennials. This is often called a butterfly weed, but it's really sedum. And here's another butterfly bush. This is a miniature butterfly bush. It is only going to grow to about 3 feet in a couple of years, and this is also a perennial. So milkweed and monarchs, I think a lot of people know that there's a connection, and here's how it works. The milkweed is where the monarchs lay their eggs because the caterpillars can only eat milkweed. If you want to help monarchs, you can plant milkweed. You can do that from seed. You can just scatter the seed in the fall. There is seed available from garden stores. You can buy plants at some local nurseries, either in the fall or the spring. But the other thing about milkweed is even if you don't want it in your yard, they still need the pollination plants. So you can just have flowers and you're helping monarchs. If you take a very close look at this milkweed, and this is not usually the type we grow in Idaho, this is just a leftover from a demonstration project, you can see that there are holes in the leaves, and that's because eggs have hatched and caterpillars are eating the plant. So I'm keeping some monarch butterflies, and these are leftovers from the Butterfly Adventures display at the Western Idaho Fair. This milkweed plant is covered with eggs and caterpillars. I'm going to allow them to grow up and spin a chrysalis and hopefully hatch out some monarchs that I will have on display when there's a pollinator celebration in October. All right, I have a couple of myths about butterflies that you may have heard. One is that you can't touch a butterfly because the scales will come off and you're going to kill it. This actually is not true. You can hold a butterfly firmly, just don't rub your fingers together and get too many of the scales off of it. Another myth about monarchs that come through Idaho is people think that these monarchs are headed to Mexico because monarchs are very well documented throughout the Midwest, and those monarchs do go to Mexico for the winter for migration. But the monarchs in Idaho are headed to the California coast, and they're going to hang out all winter, and they don't eat, and they just basically hang from big giant groves of eucalyptus trees until the spring, and then they decide to come to Idaho. There is a butterfly that's really common here in Boise that looks a lot like a monarch, and we see them down by the river because they love willow trees and poplars, and it's called a viceroy. I'm holding a monarch, but I'll show you the difference. On a viceroy, it's going to have this black line that connects all these cells to make kind of a web along the bottom. Otherwise, they're about the same size. It's really hard to tell the difference. But one major difference is the viceroy does not migrate. It's producing its last generation of caterpillars now, and those caterpillars will roll themselves up in the leaves of the trees, and then when the spring comes, they'll pop out and start their new generation.